New laptop with an Nvidia RTX 5090. RTX 5090. Second. RTX Pro 6000.
Ever heard of AMD? AMD?
I've never tested AMD for LLMs. This is the build your own PC section, my favorite section of the store. And this is what we're looking at today. These are the video cards, the GPUs that are gonna power your LLMs. This used to be the gaming section, but now it's the gaming and LLM section. And we wanna focus in over here on this, which are all AMD GPUs. This is Dan, everybody. Dan's been helping me up Micro Center. We got a bunch of Nvidia cards here, a ton of them. The 5090, the 4090, we got the 5080, 5060, 5070 Ti. We know all these already. They're decent cards. There's a history of CUDA. CUDA is a software. That's the layer that sits on top of the hardware so you can develop software for it. It basically gives you access to parallel processing, which is what's good for LLMs. Now here we've got the AMD stack. I'm not familiar with the AMD stack, so that's why Dan is here. Dan can tell us a little bit about what's going on with these cards and how we can use them with LLMs. They have a parallel library called ROCm, which is also something that's up and coming. It's not as mature as Nvidia, but we're gonna get to discover what it can do. Dan, what's up with these cards? What's the difference between these? We've got the 7900 XTX, we got the 7900 XT, we've got the XTRX. All these letters and numbers, I don't understand. Tell me, what's going on with these?
The biggest value proposition that AMD is going to give you versus Nvidia is the fact that it is able to give you so much memory. Sure, there are some like 8 GB cards in between that are stragglers, but that video memory that actually comes on board with the card is really what's going to make the biggest difference to a lot of consumers. And in the case of you guys, it makes the most sense with the LLMs. But Nvidia's biggest advantage is the fact that CUDA has been in use for so long. So many different developers have been able to actually implement it than you would with anything that AMD offers.
Yeah, it's mature.
Yeah,
CUDA is mature.
And also a whole lot easier to kind of get it working with Windows or any sort of other operating system versus AMD's, which sometimes hasn't been as friendly.
But let's say people are trying to decide between these two platforms. Should it go with something like this, which is mature, or something that's kind of up and coming?
What AMD has over Nvidia is the fact that their focus is really more on the raster side. Nvidia's got all these like really nice little software workarounds, but all of that is not really going to be super relevant to us right now because we're not talking about gaming. We're talking about how you can use this in maybe something like DeepSeek, Llama, whatever.
When I look at these numbers,
yeah,
it looks like we got the 60 here and we got the 60 here. Are these comparable cards?
The 9060 XT is kind of supposed to be like a 5060, 5060 Ti replacement.
It's a lot smaller. I don't know.
Yeah, there definitely are much bigger models of this guy, but I'm a big fan of the Sapphire card. I mean, they do pretty good with their
These guys
quality.
right here,
yeah,
Sapphire?
Sapphire's phenomenal.
For people that don't know what that means, what is Sapphire? What is Asus? I mean, I know what Asus is. We all know what Asus is. It's a company, right? But why are all these companies different? Is it the same card? Like if you're getting a 5090 from Asus, is it the same as a 5090 from MSI?
At the end of the day, the 5090, like the actual die itself is not being made by Asus, MSI, ASRock, or Sapphire. People making those cards are gonna be AMD and it's gonna be Nvidia. All these guys are doing is they're taking that GPU and they're putting their shroud over it, they're adding the memory, everything, they're doing their testing. And so you're paying for the work they put on top of the product.
And the extra fan that they usually put
some
in
of them
on
are
the
gonna
bigger cards, right?
Exactly.
Because the Nvidia ones, they usually have 2 fans. The Founders Edition, right?
Yeah, that's the most recent change they made now, where it's got like the 2 fans at the bottom instead on the shroud. A 5090 is a 5090. Like if one looks better to you or feels better to you, why not? You know, it's a matter of personal taste at the end of the day.
Okay, so it doesn't matter, but should you buy a cheaper one or should you buy the one that you think looks better?
So I think that would depend on the consumer. I mean, I know myself. If it's me, I'm gonna get whatever I think is the prettiest. But if you're really just chasing raw performance, just go with whatever is not the most obnoxiously expensive.
Save some money, right?
Save some money,
Speaking of saving some money, that's what we're gonna do with the AMD lineup, right? Because it's
100%.
way cheaper than the Nvidia lineup.
Yeah, let's just compare these two cards at the very bottom. They're kind of within that same generation. The 5080 is actually a good one to put in the mix too, but the 4090 and the 7900 XTX, both are 24 gigabyte cards.
Previous generation cards, right?
Yeah, previous generation cards. Technically, the XTX is supposed to be the top of the line for AMD. Packaging is pretty good on all of these.
I know, but it's heavy too.
Yeah.
The 5090 is crazy heavy. All right, what do we got? We got the previous generation, right? So these are still very valid cards. I know I've used the 4090, I still have it and I use it. It's got 24 gigs of VRAM, which means you'll be able to run models that are like 12 billion parameter models, no problem on that. Here, it also is 24 gigabytes, check it out. So does that mean you can run the same kind of models on it? Well, I don't know, we're gonna possibly see that. What's up with the XTX label?
They added the XTX to kind of differentiate, like make it known that this is their highest end card. Like they have the 7900 XT, which is cut down and it has 20 gigs of memory, and then just add the extra X to the end, which...
Extra X means extra $100. I don't know how much they cost. How much are these anyway?
So that's what's really cool about this comparison. One of these guys new, and even on like the used market, if you check the used market for 4090s, you're looking at around 2,000 to like 2,800. This one's at $2,500.
Yikes.
This guy right here is $1,000. The AMD card. And sometimes you can find them cheaper than that. You can find them like anywhere from 800 to 1,100. And if you want something really fancy, 1,200.
Wow.
So it's half the cost, same memory, but as far as how you're gonna be able to use it, that's where it's gonna become tricky because again, these don't have CUDA. Initially, I think DeepSeek was actually doing better with the XTX cards than they were with Nvidia. I don't know if that's still the case now, but you know, it's not gonna be the same sort of showing in every single application.
Okay, so XTX, they use something called ROCm, which is AMD's library, the equivalent of CUDA. ROCm is kind of a work in progress. AMD is really kicking it up a notch this year to really get that up to speed because of AI interest. So we'll see how that goes. We know the prices are way different here. We know that AMD's are cheaper, but what about this right here? 7900 XTX versus 7900.
Yeah, so like I said, the XTX is gonna be like our highest end card. It's gonna have all the bells and whistles and the 24 gigs of memory. Think of the XT as just kind of like a dummier version of that. So it's got less of the actual cores that make it a powerhouse, and it's got a little bit less memory, but it's still 20 gigs of memory for anywhere between $700 to $900.
Wow, 20 gigs of VRAM for 700 to 900 bucks? That's not bad.
You don't see more than 16 gigabytes from Nvidia until you're talking like 1800 and up. It's way cheaper and you still get a ton of memory on it.
There is one thing though, the 5090 is the first kind of consumerish card that has 32 gigs of VRAM, and that's all the extra weight, right?
That's actually the weight of the cooler.
But this one has 32 gigs of VRAM and GDDR7.
Yeah.
Is this GDDR7?
No, that is still gonna be GDDR6.
6.
They only started working with GDDR7 with the 50 series. So
Okay.
comparing 4090 to 7900 XTX, the memory is slightly faster on the 90, just because it's like GDDR6X or something like that, versus 6, they're still really fast.
They're still really fast. So the 7900 XT and the XTX are the top of the line from the previous generation of AMD.
Yeah.
Still very valid, lots of memory there. The new cards, this is the new generation, right?
Yeah, minus the little straggler in the middle there, 7800 XT.
Oh, 7800, let's talk about that one.
So the 7800 XT is honestly a pretty interesting card. It's the one that's immediately below the 7900 XT. In theory, you would have found it between anywhere from like 200 to 300 bucks cheaper than the 7900 XT. It was competing with something like the 4070. So it was $600 versus $500, 12 gigabytes versus 16 gigabytes. So you're getting more value out of the XT. Nowadays, it's still a good card. If you can find it at a good price, it's a really good in between, like with the new AMD cards that we're going to be talking about, the 9070 XT and the 9060 XT.
And how much is this one here?
If I'm not mistaken, I think that one is currently going for $599, but I have seen them go for anywhere like from $500 to $550.
That's not bad because that's about the same price as a 5060 Ti, right?
Yeah, if you're a gamer, the 7800 XT honestly makes a lot more sense, and you still get the same amount of video memory.
So that's the previous generation, that's RDNA 3. Now RDNA 4, these are the new ones. We've got the RX 9070, they're adopting the Nvidia style of model numbers, and this one is upside down, so we can't read it. This one is the 9060 XT. So Is it that the 9070 is equivalent to the 5070 and the 9060 equivalent to the 5060?
You know, it's really weird. The 9060 is definitely equivalent to something like a 5060, 5060 Ti. The 9070 XT is a bit more interesting because it kind of likes to the 5070 Ti and the 5080. This was supposed to be below the 7900 XT and the XTX.
Well, because it has only 16 gigs of VRAM, right?
Yeah, and some other things about its its actual like architecture.
This card is just so tiny. I can't believe it.
Oh man, I should have brought one of the XFX ones out. They get big. They can get really, really big.
So for LLMs, you're gonna want to run larger models, and 16 gigabytes is probably at the lowest end of a card that you ever want to get. There's 8 gigabyte cards too. We didn't bring them out because there's just no point. Don't get those unless you're running really, really tiny models for very specific use cases. Prices on these are pretty good too. What is that, $389? Is that?
$389 for this guy. And the Steel Legend is actually the best price 9070 XT you can get right now. It's about, I want to say, $699.99.
$699.
Yeah, this is one that tends to sell out because of the fact that all the other ones are like 100 or 200 bucks more.
So I better get this before it sells out, huh? All right, so 16 gigabyte versions of the Nvidia cards. This is 16 gigabytes, and this is 16 gigabytes, and the 5080 is 16. So these are all 16 gigabyte cards. Let me Why would I pay so much more for these?
This guy here, $1,300.
Whoa.
This guy, I think it's either, depends on where the price, because the prices on these are always like changing. It was $940. It's probably come down to somewhere around like $890 by the time of this video. And this guy up here should be $480, but I'm pretty sure it's $530, $550.
Those are all 16 gigabyte cards, and if you're comparing that to the AMD 16 gigabyte cards, you're certainly getting a way better deal with these. Now, what about performance? That's something I gotta check because I haven't tested these out yet. So we're gonna do that.
If you can get a really good deal on a 4090 or any like used, even 3090, those are really, really good values, like options to consider. Just know that it's kind of hard with the current market. And
do you have any 3090s?
I wish I did. I would have brought that out immediately.
They're all sold out, right?
Man, they're
hotcakes. What about the weight? I mean, which one is gonna make me stronger?
Honestly, probably the 5090. Grab you another gigabyte one. Those are particularly heavy.
You know, this one's not gonna make you as strong.
No.
This one's gonna make you way stronger. So do you wanna spend that extra money or join the gym? It's up to you.
It's true. Save you a couple $100 going to the gym every year.
Let's do it. We're gonna go with 9070 with the XTX.
Okay, cool.
I'm wondering if I should pick this one up too while I'm here. Remember this song?
I don't.
This is John Cicada.
Oh, okay.
From in the 90s. We can't play this on YouTube, but thank you so much for your help again.
Of course.
Everybody leave a comment down for Daniel. Say good stuff only.
I've been getting a lot of people coming in here saying, I saw you in that Alex video. It's like,
yeah.
Awesome. How'd my hair look? As long as my hair looks good.
For 2 cards, AMD is the way to go. This would have been
150/80.
this would have been 150/80 card. Now I got 2 cards. Getting checked out. Now I gotta figure out how to run Rock'em on these. Yes, taking this back to the office. Don't forget your workouts. Developers need workouts. All right, well, this is not gonna be a deep dive, but I just wanna see if one of these works, and I'll do a comparison in another video, and I'm gonna start with this one, which is the older card. It's supposed to have a little bit more stable support at this point, and we'll save this one for another video. Now, don't get me wrong, I've had AMD cards before, 20 years ago. The packaging is just really nice. What is all this? I thought this was gonna be easy. Ah, nice. The middle fan is smaller. Let's make some space here. Good Lord, that 5090 is huge. Barely fits into that case. Here's the size difference. There we go. I still have no idea what these are for, but it turns on. Okay, let's go with Windows. I know you're about to write that comment. We'll try Windows first, and then we'll do Linux later when I'm testing the other card. Okay, don't worry, it's coming. That resolution is just insanely bad. Oh, there we go, fixed itself. Yeah, thanks Windows. Okay, drivers are installed and it's showing up right here in my task manager, AMD Radeon RX 7900 XTX. Now let's check out LM Studio and to see if it automatically detects it. All right, here's LM Studio. Let's go over to runtimes, and there it is, ROCm Llama CPP. I need to download and install it apparently, 333 megabytes. So let's do that. But before I do that, I want to see what this will give us as far as the tokens per second performance before I update. So there's 24 gigs of VRAM on that card. That means we can run models up to, well, let's see, this one, Qwen 2.5 Coder, 32 billion. You know what, let's not push it. That one is almost 20 gigs, so let's go with a smaller model. Gemma 3, 12 billion Instruct. Quad. GPU offload? It's not letting me GPU offload anything. Why? All GPUs are currently disabled. It wouldn't even use Vulkan? That's too bad. Let's download and install ROCm, because that's what we're really here for, right? LM runtime updated, ROCm Windows installed, and we should be able to use it now. Let's go to that model again. Gemma 312B. What? All GPUs are currently disabled? Come on. Let's restart LM Studio. What's going on? GPU is obviously not disabled. It's here. It's got a little bump right there. LM Studio, what are you doing? I'm gonna just send a prompt in and see if anything hits the GPU anyway. Probably not. There it is. It's being loaded up into system memory and the CPU is processing it. Not good. 7 tokens per second on the CPU. I'll restart this computer and see what happens. Disable integrated graphics. This Reddit thread says that if you have an AMD integrated graphics, and I do, then you need to disable it in the BIOS in order for ROCm to recognize the discrete GPU. What? Seriously? Okay, integrated graphics disabled. Let's go back to LM Studio. Let's pick a model. What? There's nothing under the GPU settings. This is ridiculous. Let's try Olama. Oh, I can hear that coil whine. It's working. It's actually working. Look at that. Everything is dumped to the GPU with Olama. And there is compute on the GPU. It's actually doing it. That was just Gemma 3, the base model, and we got 120 tokens per second, which is pretty nice. Jumping in here real quick, I tweeted out the fact that I was having an issue with LM Studio and the AMD chip, and sure enough, it was my stupidity. But what's impressive is Matt from LM Studio answered me right away. They got into a Slack call with me, and he basically told me about this setting right here. So this is under runtime, even though ROCm is installed here, the default engine is still set to CUDA. So I just needed to switch this up to ROCm, and then it worked. This should be automatic, of course, but you know, it's good to know that it's there. Let's check out Gemma 327 billion. Now this is a 16 gigabyte model, 17, and it's telling me that 55 out of 62 layers should be offloaded, but no, I know they can fit in there, so I'm gonna offload all of them. Load model. And there is our dedicated GPU memory. We're up to 21 gigabytes out of 24. Right, story. Boom. There it goes. It's not the fastest thing in the world, but it's going pretty decently fast. And I'm hearing all this coil whine from that chip. All right, let's stop that. We're getting 29.8 tokens per second, and I have my results for the 5080 for that same model. The 5080 couldn't really run that, so I got 0.43 tokens per second because the 5080 only has 16 gigs of memory, so it had to run on the CPU. So let's be a little bit more fair, pick a smaller model like this. Gemma 3, 12 billion. The 5080 got 72 tokens per second for that. There it is. We're gonna offload all 14 layers. Write a story, and there it goes. It's pretty fast. Boom. 69.19 tokens per second versus 72. We're close, folks. This card is about the same level of performance as an RTX 5080, but with more memory. It can run bigger models, like that Gemma 27B. Not bad, AMD. So that was a 7900. Now, I did pick this one up, and I just went back and got this one. 9070 XT, 9060 XT, both I'll be testing out. Stay tuned for that. And don't miss the last day of Micro Center's 4th of July savings. Those end tonight. And starting tomorrow, July 8th at 9 a.m., Tech Days kicks off with huge deals on GPUs and other stuff, of course. You'll find the links down below. Check them out.